We have a lot of crazy looking balance sheets in today's economy. Those balance sheets, they all can't be true. There's not enough money in the system. So something's going to happen. There will be, as we economists like to say, there's a short-term disequilibrium before we attain market equilibrium. It's easy to look like a bull in a bull market. And so returns are happening as a result of organic growth and not as a result of true dynamic leadership.
89% of AI initiatives are failing right now. And Gartner says the reason is not technology, it's leadership. What is your advice to executives? They should look at AI initiatives to turn to scale and ROI.
If I walk into that boardroom and the members of that board cannot trust me to deliver results, then my credibility is gone. There is no allowance for AI. If I put dirty data and clean data in, it's the old adage that's still true. Garbage in is garbage out.
He has raised over $500 million in capital, managed over $50 billion in budgeted funds, holds 2 US fintech patents, redesigned NASA's accounting system, and pioneered early global blockchain structures. Only 17 months after a total ankle replacement, Zachary Lynde won 2 silver medals at the US Masters National Rowing Championships, a powerful testament to his relentless mindset and resilience. But his real legacy is radical integrity. When an audit revealed a multi-million-dollar token evaluation error, he instantly chose disclosure over damage control. He's been a CFO in pharma, blockchain, AI, and 3 other frontier industries. Now he's driving the offline AI revolution, challenging executive bias and helping organizations protect their ultimate asset, their secrets.
Privacy is the new scarcity. That's what people are looking for. We're going to be getting into the die-off pretty soon, and not all these companies are going to make it.
Any moment from your line that really shifted your mindset of life?
If I know something's going to be hard to move either in my life or with a work relationship or something like that, it's worth it to make the change and experience the benefit. Getting comfortable with change is a requirement in this lifetime. If you're not comfortable with change, you're stuck.
Zach, we are training AI right now with our high key, with our business secrets, with our strategies. Are we training our competitors? Or do you think there is a solution to keep our business secrets secret?
So yes, we are training our competitors and our data is exposed. Earlier this year, Cursor had 30 attacks, soft prompt attacks to get to the data that people were storing in it. But the bigger problem is our ideas are finding a way to the middle. Let me explain that. AI, generative AI, has a problem in that it is a statistical algorithm looking for the next character prediction. If I had a wall of blue hats and 1 red hat, and I started feeding this data into AI, and I said, show me a picture of a hat, it would no longer see the red hat, it would see the blue hats. Really important ideas are not coming from generative AI. Problems we've missed are coming from generative AI. But our IP, the most critical part of what we own and what we think, that's the part in humans that we have to preserve. And so going to AI all the time is really just going to the well of mediocrity. It's the middle ground. And we, in order to get superlatives, in order to be the red hat, you have to have this IP. And I think protected more people and the way that we think. But yes, I very much vehemently agree that we should be protecting our IP. That's a resource we need to.
There are a huge number of conversations about privacy, data breach, ethics, compliance behind here. There are no regulations right now. I mean, I was talking to a CEO of an organization on the podcast, and she said there's no code in the board that will be an AI and if it goes wrong. How to solve that? How to keep our secrets private to us, not to any competitors?
So those are really 2 questions. One question is, how do we keep our data private, but how do we assign accountability to decision making? So the privacy has to start at the user, and we have to have control, and that means picking applications that allow us to determine the level of exposure that we're going to have. the issue of assigning accountability when a self-driving car runs into a wall or strikes a person, we're looking to blockchain to help solve some of this, where we can capture an immutable record because the owner of the car is conflicted. In a court of law, that would be a problem. I did work on the first blockchain that was ever used in a court case in China to prove that the plaintiff who was suing over copyright actually had provenance over that data. And the Chinese court ruled that our blockchain was in fact a record-keeping system that was immutable and could be entered into the system. So at the point that a self-driving car has an accident, if we record who is driving that car in some immutable ledger, because blockchain or AI is not an immutable source. It's a stream of consciousness even, and it's very difficult to try to assign that. So I think we have to look to other technologies that work with AI in order to assign accountability.
AI is not really in addition to your tech stack. It is like the whole ecosystem. We are all technology stack when are NVIDIA. Then what is the other technology to do the mix?
I think that technology is trust, and it's a technology we've had since the earliest of days. But when we trust each other, then we have the ability to do this, right? The title of the book says it all. Business moves at the speed of trust. And so trust, when it's formed in a community, and long before we had electronic technologies, right? Trust was verifiable by actions or by memory, and people were held to integrity and held to account. Today, we oftentimes do business with people we don't see. We have no idea, maybe even where their offices are. And so now we have to move to something that's some sort of verifiable record. And it doesn't have to be blockchain necessarily, but it does have to be a ledger. It has to be some recordation that we all agree this is the truth. And truth is a movable goalpost if you're not watching it, because we come down to perception. And so what we have to have is technologies that record slices of time, and then we know the truth is verifiable between parties that don't know each other. And so a trustless transaction is important in this world today because it affects everything from liquidity to insurance. I did a presentation in China years ago where we talked about the fact that the global liquidity after the housing crisis had been cut in half. And if we could speed up the transactions, there's roughly $2 trillion that transacts overseas between parties that don't know each other, and the length of time is 60 days or more. And so if we can speed that up, we then add cash back into the cash velocity of a company. And so the liquidity that's solved just by trust is enormous, and that leads to productivity, that leads to growth.
It makes a lot of information for executives right now. You are investing in businesses. You identify all these areas like from scalability, from index, from profit and loss and all those things. But that is from the investor's eye. But from executive authorities who are making decisions in the boardroom, what should they look at when they adopt technologies because that is a huge concern. If I go back about 12, 15 years, there was a concern about sending all their data from on-prem data centers to the cloud, and there's huge conversations of we don't want to do that, and it's gonna leak all information and all that. Now everyone is on cloud. Again, still a lot percentage is still going hybrid, but still it's much more than about 10 years ago. Today we are talking about the same thing for AI. How soon the decisions should be made so that we don't have to wait another 10 years to have everything on AI, which we will be confident of that time with. Decisions are being made today. 89% of AI initiatives are failing right now. And Gartner says the reason is not technology, it's leadership. It's the ecosystem, the whole management of AI initiatives. Most AI projects are still in bilateral kind of scale. From that aspect, what is your advice to executives? They should look at AI initiatives to turn to scale and ROI.
That's a great question. The first point I'm going to make is about accountability. And we talked about this earlier, but if I come into the boardroom as the CFO and I say that the statement of earnings last quarter was wrong because of AI, I have eroded all my trust. I am the human in the middle. And all of, forget the SEC and GAAP and FASB and all the things that are assuring that I deliver financial statements with integrity. If I walk into that boardroom and the members of that board cannot trust me to deliver results, then my credibility is gone. There is no allowance for AI. When I signed executive contracts, and I've negotiated several, there's not anything in there that gives me anything other than complete accountability to the purpose of that company and to the mission of the investors. I have no way to deviate from that. I'm held to that account, and even to the surprise of some CEOs, we as CFOs have to be there to be that point of objectivity. So that's the first part of that. The second thing is that a lot of the adoption, and this is an MIT study that was done recently, a lot of adoption is because we're mixing dirty data with good data. So a lot of projects are failing right now because we're not going through the process of cleaning the data. As an accountant, I have to provide so much data that is accurate. And so when I can do that, I know that the results are going to be there. And the issue with AI is that it's taking in, again, that argument to the middle, that mean valuation of statistical augmentation. If I put dirty data and clean data in, it's the old adage that's still true. Garbage in is garbage out. So we don't get away from that.
That's right. There is a huge competition and there's huge pressure in the boardroom to deliver, to see results. What should be the right expectation in the boardroom in this case?
Executive leadership right now is being tasked to perform, to poor results. The market conditions, they're really put under a lot of pressure. The expectation in the boardroom has to be that each of those executives over their teams is digging deep into what are the problems to be solved. There's a lot of what I call abdication going on, where executives look to their subordinates and say, you will implement AI, you will have results, without digging into helping them to that change curve. There's a big process to change. And when executives don't take the time to get into the trenches and understand that change, you can't expect any new technology to be adopted correctly. As a CFO in manufacturing organizations, once a quarter, I will go down and I will work on the factory floor where I'm allowed and where it's appropriate, but I will be there. I look at what's going on so that I understand what we can expect from a system where bottlenecks occur. And if executives are sitting in the ivory tower and they're not walking around and they're not talking to people, you cannot expect that technology is going to get implemented well. It's going to get implemented so that budgets or so that bonuses will be made and taken, so that raises will happen, and you'll get a lot of, when the no changes to yes as it goes from factory floor to boardroom, you'll get implementation. But the results that we're seeing is that it's not working because the data is dirty. We're not cleaning it because we haven't taken the time to understand what is it we're trying to solve. And so, we really have to dig into that. We can't come at a new technology with an old thought. The reason that we started calling cars horsepower, like the rating of a car engine as horsepower, is we understood horse and carriage. So we take that metaphor of power and we put it onto this brand new technology. And we're seeing that happens over and over and over again. So AI, first of all, we've got to become students again. We have to learn that technology. We have to then understand what are the problems in business that it can solve and work with our leaders from the top to the bottom to really make that happen.
There is a readiness confusion as well I see here is because I'm talking to a lot of leaders right now through this podcast. And I asked about how much you know about AI. And I wouldn't mention anything, but said nothing. But they are really locked AI in their business. I would see that as okay, you all this spend time. You just need to prioritize. It's all about your priority, what you really want. An engineer who is actually developing, starting, needs to have a different level of knowledge than the executive on the top who doesn't have to learn how to
develop agents, but still need to learn what are the possibilities and limitations that we cannot do, and where the gaps are in our organization. What is your thought, like how to start learning and how to find that what should we learn? Like AI is in the ocean too, to get to, I mean, it's never-ending thing. I mean, there are huge number of resources, a huge number of confusions. Where to start learning?
So I think the first thing has to come from commitment. We have to be committed to being lifelong learners. In the 7 Habits, Stephen Covey writes about sharpening the saw. We can't cut wood all day long with the saw and never stop to sharpen it. That's a misnomer. My doctor, I hope when I go in to see my doctor that as many patients as he sees in a day and as much, of his practice that he sees, I'm hoping that he's up on the latest journals. I'm hoping that he's read the latest guidance or the latest studies. And I think we're no different. I think we have an obligation to do that. Now, there's been an explosion of courses from the top universities down through, online paid AI. I just bought a course myself. I'm teaching myself Python. It's just in my spare time, right? Like I've set it up on my phone so that rather than doom scrolling, I'm committing that time to active learning. And I've set out a schedule because I think that's what's required of me. When we take a leadership position, it says that we're not going to lead anybody in something we don't understand. That would be just criminal for the way I think about it. And so yes, we're all busy executives, but when we prioritize the big rocks in the jar first before we put the pebbles in the sand in the water, one of those big rocks has to be lifelong learning. We have to be excited about it, and we have to do it with our teams. We are demonstrating to our teams how we want organizations to perform. And if I'm not learning, my team doesn't value work.
You're learning Python, you're finding it interesting.
Yes.
Are you technical from your core, or you're even like programming too?
I operate in a lot of frontier industries. I like the science. I lack with all my technical teams. I'm not a technician, I'm a strategist. But I keep learning, and I might not be able to code, my own agent, but there are graphical interfaces to code agents, right? So I can use N8N. I can use things where I can drag and drop. I mean, that's at my level, right? So I can move the code around, but I fundamentally know what's going on. In those moments, I understand what process or activity that I'm changing. And when this really started to get going about a year and a half ago, I started on YouTube. There's an amazing amount of content online.
That's right.
Right? I can get Harvard courses. I can get MIT. I went back and watched the entire Gary Gensler MIT course on finance that he taught before he was the head of the SEC. And it was amazing. All free. It takes a team of people dedicated to the problem around you because it's going to be stressful. It's going to be difficult. There's new information that will come up on this journey, and you've got as a team to be able to conquer that. So getting the right people on the bus is certainly important. When you want to optimize any system, you optimize for 2 factors, speed and quality. Speed, because the faster something gets through a system.
We usually also sometimes talk quality over quantity. It's really both together.
What you don't know is always bigger than what you know. It's all situational, but yes, the quantity of results, right? And the quality of those results. We can create short-term cash flows. We can create short-term gains for the business.
You have been with the organization that find bankruptcy eventually, and people learn from bad experiences, people learn from failures. What did you learn there?
As the CFO, commitments by others, outside parties, that failed. It turns out that those ideas that I had, the understanding that I had of the outside parties who had committed capital to the company that failed to deliver, ended up resulting in bankruptcy. I had already set up all the accounting. I had set up operations to continue without me by having just a director of finance, and I continue to consult for the organization. But I pulled myself out. MIT course on finance that he taught before he was the head of the SEC. And it was amazing. All free.
I have a study to refer right now, it says 74% of firms claim positive AI returns, but only 5% show it on an actual income statement. You're touching from CFO perspective. How you spot an AI theater uh, in the balance sheet, in the presentation, in the pitch when it's talking about results?
That's a great question. We have generally too much data. Dashboards are packed. A lot of it is for show. People want to be taken seriously. If I'm flying the airplane, I want all the bells and whistles. I want all the gauges. I want everything out there. The simplicity is to find the ratios that really work, because I can, with the white, and I use a ratio as two numbers in relationship to each other. Okay. I can tell when people are putting the gold that might go into the manufacturing process in their pockets. I can find when labor is being misreported. We have to start looking deeply at the integrity of the data and what are we watching? Because what shows up time and time again is results. How many widgets are coming out of the factory per minute, per hour, and the quality that goes into that. So really, there are some simplistic things about the way that we watch our businesses, but I think the report on the 74% is about this pressure that executives are feeling to report that this is working. And what I really stress and what I urge executives to do is to really break down the analysis of what are the measurements that really determine what is quality and what is speed. Quality and speed are two very important factors to look at when you're analyzing a business.
Quality as in like monetary results in the bank account.
Yeah. So I had one of my mentors was Jim Ashton. Jim Ashton worked for General Dynamics in the 80s. He was the man who exposed Takis Veliotis for the submarine fraud, where General Dynamics was ripping off the federal government. He was an amazing man. MIT undergrad in engineering, Harvard business grad. And Jim taught me that when you want to optimize any system, you optimize for two factors, speed and quality. Speed, because the faster something gets through a system, the less cost it's going to be. Even when in a manufacturing process, when you have things laying on the floor, that wait time is a cost. You have to touch it, you have to move it. If it's data, the longer that it takes you to produce the result, your billing is delayed, your ability to start the next project is delayed. So speed from any measurement is the first thing to optimize against. But if at the same time you're optimizing for quality, the customer is going to enjoy it. We won't get a return. The product isn't going to fail in its life cycle early, where warranties are going to be involved. So when you can optimize quality on top of speed so that you can deliver both, you take care of all the details in that. And so it's learning to train ourselves to look at simple outcomes, because we can take data, we can take numbers, we can take statistics and move them around. But really we need to be looking at input results and output results and watching things very closely. And especially with the new technology, whether it's the internet or AI or blockchain, anything, we really have to focus on, what's the quality of this process going on, because it's technology that's not well understood and we could miss something.
We usually also sometimes talk quality over quantity. It's really both together.
It's all situational, but yes, the quantity of results, right? And the quality of those results. We can create short-term cash flows. We can create short-term gains for the business. If we don't make anything and we sell out inventory, we're going to have a good return on profit. But we still have to manufacture more, and those costs will show up later. So we can't shortcut the system and this is again part of what leadership really has to be focused on, and where with AI we see all this pressure on executives to perform in the short term. And we've got to change our focus to make sure that we're really getting value out of the system.
You referred about project values in terms of
Frank Costanza really Serenity Now. What is that? You wanna share your opinion about work-life balance?
I think the idea that we have a work-life balance is a misnomer of sorts. In any day, we're not going to have balance. In any week, we're not going to have balance. Maybe in a month we have balance. But I think it's important, at least for me, to understand what are the most important things. Some months, when children go to school, when they get ready, in August or towards the end of the summer vacation, things get busy. And that's an understandable practice that things get busy. But when we get into after those months, seek that balance, right? And so balance is a continuum, but I think we have to really watch ourselves and check in with ourselves. And we've got to deprioritize those things that don't add value.
At any moment, like we have to always keep checking on ourselves. What is the most important thing we should be doing? That's right. All right, let's get back to your CFO mode. When you put into a blockchain, you found multi-million-dollar valuation error, and typically leaders tend to hide or delay revealing these kind of problems until time, or sometimes no need to even show up to that. What motivated you to reveal it, and how did you handle that to bring that transparency the right way rather than ignoring it or damage to the layer?
I was called in to help interpret the launch of a blockchain company after it had happened. I couldn't get the numbers to reconcile. I was one of the pioneers in blockchain accounting because it's a very different way to do accounting. The basis of where the numbers are coming from are very different. I knew that I could not reconcile that system. And as much as I wanted to write it off and move forward, because I was going a year and a half in reverse to do this, I went into the CDO's office and I sat with him and I said, I'm going to start an internal audit investigation on what happened. The data doesn't line up. The facts are not clear. We need this for our integrity. Blockchains are radically transparent. So he knew, I let him know I was going to do this. And at that moment, I made as I always do, I made the deal with myself that if I find anything, the first place I go is to the CEO's office and I disclose everything that I found, whether it's my mistake, somebody else's mistake, his mistake, whatever it is. And I keep a journal. So I write down everything that happens. As we got into it, we understood the way that things worked between, there were two different corporations. The value of a token as it comes out of the Genesis block and all of the facts that go around that are very, very hazy. When we cleared the smoke and it was clear what had happened, it was a pit in the bottom of my stomach in that apartment nav. I was unsettled, to say the least. But I had already made the deal with myself. I already knew my integrity was on the line. The integrity of the entire blockchain was on the line. And I walked into the CEO's office and I disclosed what I had found, that I would be detailing this in a write-up. And I'm not there as the policeman. I'm there as a representative of the company to have the very best thing done for all the token holders, which are like shareholders, but all the token holders and all of the people in that company. And the result of my finding is that millions of dollars in back taxes had to get paid. Many people had to liquidate tokens in order to pay the IRS. But there is an integrity. There is no way forward if we sweep that under the carpet. That will never be put to bed. And so integrity, to start there and end there, it has to be divulged and it has to be disclosed. And that's my job. And that's how I sleep at night.
Zach, it's interesting to see you have been in blockchain for a while. Then you switched to CBD. You pivoted into pharma, oncology, back to blockchain, and then lithium play. And now AI. I mean, all these are different worlds, different industries. What motivated you to move through all this? I mean, why did you do that? Why you just didn't focus? Didn't you like the work you were doing, or like you were an explorer like me?
I think I'm an explorer. When there's more that I don't know than I know, that excites me. And it takes discipline because we always have to, for me, I have to go back to what is it I know? And we're always discovering, so things are pivoting, things are moving. The blockchain has things that happen. The pharma has things that happen. And all these things are changing. They're highly regulated. So you have a lot of scrutiny, and it's like a giant puzzle to try to figure out, okay, here's what we know today. Where do we go from here? What will it yield? How much capital do we need to make this into a successful venture? How much time? Who would like people on the bus to make sure that the journey, it can be made? So these are all exciting times when what you don't know is always bigger than what you know.
So what did you learn? What are those similarities that you could repurpose your experience in different industries, and what are the challenges that you felt?
Well, the first thing is it takes a team of people dedicated to the problem around you, because it's going to be stressful. It's going to be difficult. There's new information that will come up on this journey, and you've got as a team to be able to conquer that. So getting the right people on the bus is certainly important. Always going back and asking the question, like with lithium mining, can we sell a metric ton of lithium for more than it costs to produce? This is a problem, or it's a solution. And so how any company goes through that, developing a pharma drug, right? Will this drug will it work? Will it be efficacious to solve the problem?
Similar business situation.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we always have to keep going back and recommitting to the basics. And even though there's so much chaos going around, when you come back to what you know, that's the bridge into what you don't know. And that's the trick.
You have been with the organization that find bankruptcy eventually, and people learn from bad experiences, people learn from failures. What did you learn there?
As the CFO, there were commitments by others, outside parties, that failed. I had given warnings, but I was timid to press my point to the point of potentially creating enemies, becoming disruptive to the board. It turns out that those ideas that I had, the understanding that I have of the outside parties who had committed capital to the company that failed to deliver, was the result. It ended up resulting in bankruptcy. Because it was a little slower, I ended up taking myself out of the equation, because I thought I had already set up all the accounting. I had set up operations to continue without me, by having just a director of finance, and I continue to consult for the organization. But I pulled myself out because we needed engineers more than we needed a CFO at that moment. We weren't making a decision about how to deploy capital. We were making a decision about how to survive. And so the best thing for everybody was that I pull myself out. Now, it turns out the largest investor retained me to then oversee the bankruptcy and tried to have the best outcome. And it did eventually reach a successful conclusion, and that company was acquired and continues to operate today. But it told me that I should trust myself more. I knew in my gut what was going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball, but all the indicators were there. I could see a hurricane was coming, and I forecasted it, but I didn't put out the warning. I didn't go that extra step. And it's tough, because CFOs form a relationship with the CEO that says, I'm with you, Mr. CEO. I want you to succeed. I want to give you the ropes to run. I also have to make sure that we hear the resources. And so it's a struggle between, belief and launching ourselves out into the world, and the resources and the capital to get there, because we can't run out of money. Robert Solomon's fourth rule of capital: never, 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 never run out of it.
Yeah.
I just didn't say it loud enough. I didn't make the point, because I didn't trust myself. And ever since that day, I make sure that I have the facts, but I sit with the right people and I tell them what the condition is and what my prediction is and what my forecast is. I've been right most of my career in my predictions. When I say I'm committed to the conviction and the outcome, I get it right. And that's what I didn't have the trust in myself to call it before. And I wish I had.
And that's what changed you for the next chapter, where you saw that multi-million-dollar valuation error, and then that's tough. Yeah, it's a tough call, and you did the right thing. From your financial perspective, that I have two questions. Let me ask the first one first. Typically, like when the fiscal year is about to end, suddenly there is money shows up in the funds and there is a huge pressure, use it or lose it. And sometimes we do not have prioritization done right. We just use it for low priority things because we are already easy on doing big priority stuff. But biggest money, we are using. I don't personally feel it the right way to use money because all year long we are running tight on budget. Okay. We as in like, I've seen a lot of companies are struggling. I know hundreds of people I meet and they all have like same problem with finance. 3 quarters, very tight money. 4th quarter, suddenly multi-millions show up, using or losing. What is your experience with this and how to fix it?
Well, I can tell you, I'm a little different. When I go through the FP&A process and create budgets for companies, I make sure that my executive team will clear on this. I give a forecast to the board. The board approves a budget, and that budget is then allocated to all the various parts of the company. And that's what we think is going to be necessary at that moment in time in order to be successful. Highest return for investors. I make sure that when we pass those budgets out, people understand they are stewards of the money, but we're not giving them the money. And I think this is where a lot of executives go wrong. We all have egos. We know head of sales, I want the head of sales to feel confident and to be clear with what he's doing or she's doing. However, when we give a budget out, that budget is not theirs. That's a budget allocation that the board made. We don't measure leaders by stewardship. And that's where we've made a real problem. Because that condition where it all ends up at the last, the use it or lose it, and I can't re-justify my budget, that's really just bad corporate policy. Because I want to be able to go to those leaders and say, you're a steward of this money. The board saw fit to give you these resources, and this is the return we expect. Because the revenue forecast, or whatever the cost forecast, whatever it is, we've made a decision to say, at least for that moment in time, this is what we think is going to be successful. For those leaders then to take that money and believe that it's theirs to do with theirs what they want is a problem. I've oftentimes gone to two divisions. One is overexpending, one is underexpending, but they're both committed to the outcome. And I've said, you guys get together. We need some budget adjustments here, but you guys figure it out. This is all the same team. We're all in the same boat. There's no left side of the ship and the right side of the ship. It's one ship. And so I put them together and I will say, come up with something. And your ability as leaders to do this is how you're going to be rated as a leader. To come to successful conclusions about stewardship. And even if that means you give up budget, next year is different. 6 months from now is different. Budget adjustments are always happening. And this idea that somehow my net worth is tied to the budget that I oversee, that's a problem. We've given the wrong message. The investors and those people who are committed to the leadership of the company, they have the obligation to tell the company what they think is, how we're going to make a return on investment, how we're going to deploy capital so that investors are made whole, or that there's earnings, there's positive earnings they owe out. And we just need to change the conversation and talk about stewardship and talk about how, it's a team and it's team effort. And this idea that we have these fiefdoms is the problem in corporate America. Privacy is the new scarcity. That's what people are looking for. We're going to be getting into the die-off pretty soon, and not all these companies are going to make it.
Any moment from your line that really shifted your mindset of life?
I was hanging out with the wrong kids in middle school. And I knew that when I got to high school, if I kept that friend group, there was going to be trouble. But it taught me a lot about people. It taught me a lot about friend groups. And even to this day, if I know something's going to be hard to move either in my life or with a work relationship or something like that, it's worth it to make the change and experience the benefit. Getting comfortable with change is a requirement in this lifetime. If you're not comfortable with change, you're stuck.
What's happening on the investor side? What do you look when you got money to invest and you're picking up projects.
So I'll take the first part of that question, which is where are investors today? Their intended target is 3 years. So something's going on with leaders and the ability to make decisions that produce measurable returns. And talk about stewardship and talk about how, it's a team and it's team effort. And this idea that we have these fiefdoms is the problem in corporate America.
It's everywhere. And one aspect of this, the corporate sector. What's happening on the investor side? What is your experience on that? Like when investors look for company, businesses to invest, how prioritizations happen? What do you look when you got money to invest and you're picking up projects or even companies to investing? What do you look for?
So I'll take the first part of that question, which is where are investors today? It's easy to look like a bull in a bull market. We've had a lot of people investing in companies and the market's been going up. And so returns are happening as a result of organic growth and not as a result of true dynamic leadership. The average hold right now for private equity companies is 7 years. That statistic just came out. Their intended target is 3 years. So something's going on with leaders and the ability to make decisions that produce measurable returns.
The wealth clean out in 7 years.
So where they had planned to sell in 3 years, they're holding to 5 and 7 years. 7 years is the average, Matt, which is way too long. That means the return, because of the time value of money, right? It's you have to sell at a considerably higher amount to have the same. If you had promised a 20% return, if your target is a 20% return for that fund, and it takes you 7 years, you've got to earn tremendous amount of money in 3 years. If you can drive up the amount of money earned, then you can make that return quicker, and then you've got that capital to reinvest. And so private equity companies are in a real pickle right now. I love my brothers in private equity. Oftentimes there's some short-sightedness going on because we're trying to prepare this company to be sold. We want to maximize the earnings. Certainly we want to get customers. I'm not suggesting anything untoward here, but that process isn't working. The 3-year sale target for a lot of private equity companies has been missed. And so that's a problem. So when I look to invest, I really want to know, what is the problem that's being solved? What is it that you think you're doing? And what is the size of that problem? Is that problem even worth solving? How much accounting leverage can I create in this business? I like to use the example of a money crank, right? So I have this imaginary machine that I crank, and I put $1 in the top, and the dollar goes in. What's going to come out? Is that $1.20? Is that 90 cents? Is that $1.50? Every time that we run an accounting cycle, and we turn that money crank, we put $1 in. How much is coming out? And is the team in place to do that? And is the environment, we're in AI, is the environment going to sustain? We have a lot of crazy looking balance sheets in today's economy. Those balance sheets, they all can't be true. There's not enough money in the system. So something's going to happen. There will be, as we economists like to say, there's a short-term disequilibrium before we attain market equilibrium.
Yeah.
Long run.
Yeah.
So short run and long run. What causes that? Am I going to be a part of that? I've invested in 2 AI companies. So it's really important that I'm very clear on what the future looks like and how my economics are tied to the environmental economics.
What is your latest investment?
I got a call, last summer, and 4 young guys looking for an investment. I don't often take pitches, but they had the idea of local AI for coding, something called an integrated development environment. And I had just finished looking at what I thought were going to be the token economics, the blockchain. These are AI tokens now. These bits of information that get processed, and what are we going to charge for these bits of information? And in my estimation, this was going to be a very expensive race to try to play. And the way that those economics would work locally, when you don't pay for tokens, you have a little bit of limited loss, but you know, so back to what's the problem being solved, right? It was privacy and integrity, but wrapped in that was the price of tokens and the ability to have a local environment that you control. Back to IP, controlling our IP assets. The customer gets to control how much exposure they want, not Anthropic, not OpenAI, not any of the other large protocols. This is something made by the customer. And so I didn't accept, I didn't take the investment necessarily. I worked with the team for probably 3 months before I committed to, marshaling them through. These guys all grew up with each other. So there aren't going to be any founder fights. The team is going to hold together. All 4 of them have master's degrees in computer science. So the team is well trained. Their ethics are such that their mothers call them and their mothers call each other. So I have another board in the background to make sure that these guys are performing. So there was just a lot about this team that said this is the right team. They were solving the right problem around privacy. They had the right environmental conditions in looking at token economics and where this was going to play out. And today, more than ever, companies are looking at bringing AI in-house. And so we had just launched the product in anticipation of this. And so my bet 9 months ago is now paying off.
That is what we mean by the offline revolution has started. Private, powerful, and built for real developers.
This idea that we are in control of our privacy is huge. So I'm an economist by training in my undergrad. What I do, one of the things I do when I look around and say, is this problem worth solving? Say, okay, what's abundant and cheap and what's scarce and expensive? Privacy is the new scarcity.
That's right.
That's what people are looking for. During the Super Bowl, when the Ring doorbell announced that they were going to help everybody find their dogs, the overwhelming response to Ring was people turning off their accounts, asking, is my data going to be exposed? And they said they were going to find like 1 dog a week. Well, when you run the numbers out, 365 dogs or 52 dogs in a year is not enough. That's it. You're not really doing anything. And it turns out Ring had a contract with a company that has a contract with the federal government to expose data. So privacy, it just in that one Super Bowl ad, Ring today is still struggling to make their projections based on their customer response to their cameras being used to potentially look at license plates or look at people, look at things other than pets. And so, yeah, privacy is the new scarcity.
Is that the only solution? Localizing AI?
It's not the only solution, but the people, the men who came together, men and women came together to form these large models, were exploring a new technology and they needed massive amounts of capital. For their investors, they're not going to be able to sustain a local model people can afford. They need a transactional model that people are paying for as they go along and that price is flexible. So already the balance sheets, we have more losses and capital that's coming into the equation than we have revenue and the creation of growth. So that's the problem. So this industry is going to continue to operate in a way that it can be profitable. Now, what's going to happen if you study evolutionary economics, right? Like the Cambrian period where life explodes because the conditions, the oxygen, the light, carbon, everything's present. So in the Cambrian period, you have this explosion of life. And then comes the die-off because conditions change. And so some species no longer can sustain. They're not the fittest. This is where Darwinism comes in, right? Same thing happens in companies. I have spent my career going from frontier technology to frontier technology. And at first, sometimes it's a bubble, sometimes it's not, but there's, let's just say, an excitement and enthusiasm with investors to want to know, can I make money at this new technology? So money shows up. That's the beginning of this life period. And this is the first part of starting to take a technology and commercialize it. When I got my MBA, the first technology I dealt with was nanotechnology. And even today, we're still seeing it's a very slow race to take nanoparticles and nanotechnology, things that perform under 1 meter, under 1 nanometer in size. The properties are different than they are on scale. So that's what defines nanotechnology. It's still being commercialized. So money shows up. You have this explosion, the internet. We had Netscape Navigator. We don't have Netscape Navigator today.
No,
But Google was born out of the ashes. It's the phoenix. So you have these things. So life is always occurring. Life is always happening. And we're going to be getting into the die-off pretty soon. And not all these companies are going to make it. So then it's like, what do you pick? Where do you pick in that process? And this is why the details and like, what do we know? You know, Jeff Bezos was asked one time, you know, do people ask you what's going to be different in the future? And Jeff says, I get this question all the time and I hate it because I don't really care. And I was taken back by his answer. And I said, you know, and so he goes on to answer the question. He says, what really matters is what's going to be the same in the future. He said, nobody's ever going to come to me and say, Jeff, can you deliver my package a little bit slower? Hey, nobody's ever going to come to him and say, hey, Jeff, can you make it cost just a little bit more? I mean, it's too cheap. He said, as long as I'm investing in technologies that are going to be the same in the future, it's a valid investment, right? Bringing AI local and allowing customers to determine how they're going to use it in their business, that's going to be permanent. That's a residual. Sometimes the only access that we have to technologies is because of this expenditure. China just opened quantum computing. So now we have access to qubits that you can program and you can buy time for that. This idea that we put a lot of capital in order to break through these ideas is necessary, right? But this is the Cambrian part of it. And I think eventually when there are fewer LLMs and the knowledge is retained, because that IP will be bought by the next company. It's not that IP is not going away, but the economics in the short term, we're going to have disequilibrium. Things are not going to, you know, all line up. But that's what brings the value down and allows it to be investable and allows the investors that remain to get a return on this product. So it's got to happen this way, but you have to be careful not to be the species that dies off.
That's interesting. I mean, you have different areas in your profession and you have done all of those quite well, very well. And you have gone with streaks. When you don't do all this, what else you do?
I like to garden. I like to grow things.
But that's what you do in business too.
Yeah, I can buy the seeds. I can prepare in soil. I can provide the water. The genius of that cell and the spark of life that comes from that seed and all the programming that's in that little thing to have it grow. And then, you know, I can try to bite the insects. I can plant other plants that drive the insects away. I just think there's a real harmony to watching life come out of the ground. I love to eat it. I love to cook with it. So gardening is just a passion that it centers me. Some of these technologies that I deal with are so out in the future. I mean, as a hobby, I study quantum mechanics, and I do that so I can feel how small I really am.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So gardening, it's the thing that grounds me. But even there is life springing forth out of the ground that I have nothing to do with. Like I provide maybe that's it. Like companies, I provide the environment and watch it grow and just foster its growth. But that seed, gardening is just fun for me.
Any moment from your line that really shifted your mindset of life? Like you have been in different areas in business, but of course, like most learnings and pivotal moments come from the personal side of the life. Let's go through your high school. What was Zach thinking about his life in high school? Is it the same life you are living right now, or it is totally different? Then if it is, what changed in between that made you Zachary Lynde, who you are today?
I was hanging out with the wrong kids in middle school. And I knew that when I got to high school, if I kept that friend group, there was going to be trouble.
You realized it, or?
Yeah, no, I was getting in trouble. There were some things going on.
That's the most vulnerable time for any kid, I would say.
I wanted to be, you want to be liked. I wanted to be accepted. My parents divorced when I was young, so raised by a single mother. I didn't always have, we didn't have a lot, but I was always kind of a little aware that maybe I didn't have as much. We struggled a little bit. I wasn't ashamed of it, but I wanted to be accepted. I think that's a pretty natural thing. I fell into the kids that accepted me, but they were also troubled. They had different things going on in their lives, and I knew this was going to be a problem. And I knew that going into high school, if I didn't change this was going to continue. So I did. I switched. I started playing football and doing some other things, and I had to put up with a lot of teasing and harassment and things like that. These kids were not nice kids, and so but it taught me a lot about people. It taught me a lot about friend groups, and even to this day, if I know something's going to be hard to move either in my life or with a work relationship or something like that, it's worth it. It's worth it to make the change and experience the benefit. It's hard to change. I think this is true about any change. When we have to change, we have to overcome something. And being committed to the fact that what's on the other side of that change is what's going to be better. And I go on to learn this even more in college.
Difficult when have mentored in the school time. I've been through schools. My elder son is going to college right now, and I had seen those phases with my elder brother, myself, with my kid. That has to be guidance available for kids to choose the right path or to detect if something is not right. Yeah. What have you?
My mother. She was an amazing woman. She was wise beyond her years. She had a high school education. She went on later to graduate from college. We graduated 2 months apart from each other. I started college in 1985. She started college in 1972. So she had a wisdom about her that was really special. And we had a relationship. I was raised by her, a single child. She was dynamic in her approaches, and she was bold, and she was courageous. And so she taught me that.
The homes I use.
Oh, yeah. She was one of the best. And so she taught me so much in that transition. And that's one principle, like learning how to overcome change, learning how to do things that are hard, that it's going to be okay. That even when it feels hard, that's the way it should feel. Right? That to be comfortable with that. Getting comfortable with change is a requirement in this lifetime. If you're not comfortable with change, you're stuck.
Yeah. Change is the only constant.
It is.
Yeah. Between your high school, your college, and your journey on your career, and different shifts from your career, what is those similar small wins that you want to share that we can learn from? What do you think we should keep with us during all the way and keep leading things that are not right for growth?
I'll tell one experience that I had in college that was pretty major. I was out on a church hayride like one night. It was in a small town, and I was hit by a car as a pedestrian. The car was going 55 miles an hour. 7 fractures in my legs. 4 of them were compound, almost bled to death. My first surgery was 11 and a half hours. I subsequently went under 12 surgeries, to learn to walk again, to heal my body. Last February, I had an ankle replacement and went on to win 2 silver medals in the national rowing competition. The thing that it taught me, before every surgery and after every surgery, the doctor comes in and he makes a prognosis, a diagnosis, and gives a course of treatment. He's the professional. So the diagnosis and the course of treatment, at that point, I'm a student with him. He's teaching, I'm learning. He's giving a course of questioning, but I stay with that. However, the prognosis is something that I learned to be very careful of. If you looked at a natural distribution, a bell curve, and the mean being right in the middle. What the medical sciences and what the community can tell us is this, for 100 people or for 1,000 people, this is the distribution of results, right? Average, below average, above average, exceptional. Doctors can tell me what that curve is. The one thing they can't tell me is which dot on that curve I am. When I left the hospital after the first 4 surgeries, I was in the hospital a month and 4 days. After the first, so I'm getting ready to leave the hospital, they explained that I would not probably walk for at least a year, and that, I was probably going to use a cane or have, really serious gait patterns for the rest of my life. I left in October. On New Year's Eve, I have a recording, a videotape of me walking 25 feet, standing up, walking down, and walking back with a physical therapist next to me, ready to catch me, 2 bilateral leg braces, basically holding my legs together, right? And I'm walking down and back. And I had to do that. I had to know that the prognosis wasn't real. And the best part, the song that's playing in the background in this video is the song, I Haven't Got Time for the Pain. So that taught me everything. That the future is unknown. It will come to pass. But my belief in the future and everything I can do to course correct with that future, that belongs to me. Yes, sometimes it fails. Sometimes there are probably 2,000 things in the world I can't do today. But there's 8,000 I can.
Yeah, tough times are good, actually. My perspective had changed on the struggle too. Whenever I realize, it's not comfortable for me, and I also remind myself, this is a time to grow. It's an opportunity to grow. Yeah, I mean, these physical challenges and some mental challenges through the way. It's good to stay healthy. It's blessing, but if things go off, don't get disappointed. And that's really an opportunity to get stronger. And there's a saying tough time make strong people, great people. Through all that, in your life, I'm quite impressed with your recognition with NASA on that 100 billion proposal. What was your bigger ego to be recognized by NASA, or your protocol is still being used today globally?
I think just coming up with the solution was the reward. So at the time I worked for KPMG, and I was so hard to manage in my early career because I would see things that I think would be true. And so I would do it. In this case, there was a particular technology, and I said, this is going to be very important to our team. We had coded and created our own accounting system, and just the way it was evolving, there were some things that were going to be needed about estimating and how we install in new clients. I applied for these courses. I bought the software. I had to fight my managers to do it. I hit resistance at every point. And we get this proposal from NASA, 16-year, $100 million project with Booz Allen. And one of the requirements is to do an entity relationship diagram, the technology I've been working on. And which was, at the time, it was brand new. Nobody did it. And so somebody had heard that I'd been working on that, and they came to me. So I spent a month going back and forth to Washington, D.C., working alone at our offices in D.C. on the weekends, because I was working every week. I spent 3 months, created a document that was the size of a 3-story building, 120 feet wide, okay? So if you printed this thing out, this was in the days you had to submit the binders, right? And so if you had stacked all the bids, it was enormous. It was very gratifying when they came to me, because I knew that my intuition was right, back to following that kind of that inner direction, right? And then when the proposal came out, NASA commented that they said, the clear indication of this proposal is that you understood our entity relationship diagram. You understood our legacy software better than any of your competitors. And I had built that. I was 28. Nobody told me I couldn't do it. I didn't know I'm not, by nature, I'm not technical. You know, I have a triple major in economics, political science, and business administration. I taught myself all those things, you know, database mapping and tables, keys. Yeah. And it was, so I just, you know, the thing was, we won the proposal and now the work started. So there wasn't much time to celebrate, right? But winning the proposal, I had solved the problem. And I almost didn't care I didn't even care that I got recognition. I just was so satisfied that I had found the way to unlock this.
Yeah. It's interesting, satisfactory. Any last message for executives on your experience, like how should be ready for AI future?
It's got to start with integrity. And when I say integrity, what I mean by that is we have to be honest with ourselves, and we have to be honest with the people that we work with, and we have to be honest with our investors. We have to be honest first with ourselves that we don't know a lot of things that we have to know. And that's enough. That right there is just uncomfortable. You know, once we have that mantle, either we're, you know, mid-level executive or we're working our way up to the C-suite, people expect that we just know, and that's not true. And it's a problem when we let people think that that's true.
That's right.
And so integrity starts with ourselves. Then we have to have integrity with our teams to say, I don't know that. I'm going to learn that. Let's learn that together. Come teach me what you learned. That's integrity. And then to go to our investors and say, these are the 5 things in our business that cost us the most amount of money. Or these are the 3 things that stand in the way of revenue the most. We think AI might apply to 2 of these or 1 of those, but be honest about what your experiment is and that you're experimenting. And we'll give them the results, but don't hide the results. So often we hide results from people because we think we're not going to make enough money, we're not going to be liked, we're going to be fired, like all of these fears that go off. And so take the time to sit with yourself and know yourself enough to get rid of the fear, or at least turn the volume down. That doesn't stand in the way, and it doesn't prevent integrity. If you don't come from integrity, nothing around you will come from integrity. And if you don't have an organization that's got integrity, all the organization is people in it. So for an organization to have integrity, or to be a fully integrated, and integrity means not being split in purpose or nature, right? So when things are integral, they're of one mind. So what we say, what we do, what we think, those all align. And that's the integrity we gear our brain back into the boardroom and into our teams and corporations and business. That's why I know.
That's great. Wonderful. Thank you, Zach. Thank you very much for your insights today. Wonderful conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Doc.
And that's a wrap on this episode. As I look back over our journey so far, I'm struck by something far more significant than our metrics. I'm struck by the caliber of the conversations we have built together. To you, our viewers, thank you. Your time is the most valuable asset you own, and the fact that you choose to spend it here. I do not take it lightly, and I do everything possible in my control to create the value content for you. At this show, we are not interested in winning the race for volume. We are committed to quality over quantity. Our goal is not to fill your feed, but to fuel your perspective. We are building a platform focused on big picture insights that actually move the needle in your life and your career. We are still in our early chapters, and I'm grateful to have you with us as we build something designed to last. Thank you for your trust and your continued support. If you value this perspective and our agenda, I invite you to subscribe and join us in building this mission. Thank you.